Now we want to take a moment to talk a little bit about lesson plans, which is the heart of your day and what you'll be teaching. Oftentimes, our teachers will upload their lesson plan into Subfinder, and that gives you an opportunity to review what the lesson will look like and entail the night before you arrive to the job. Oftentimes, the lesson plans are placed on the teacher's desk, and that's why it's important to arrive 30 minutes early so you have time to review the lesson plan, make sure you have the appropriate materials. In rare cases, there's an emergency, and teachers are forced to get a guest teacher at the last minute, and oftentimes you may arrive in this situation with an emergency lesson plan, or possibly no lesson plan at all. I want to give you some advice on how to work with lesson plans or lesson plans that maybe aren't ideal, or an emergency situation where there may not be a lesson plan. There are always many people within the school building that can help, and typically the main office administrative assistant will have all the answers. That person will know who to get help with for technology, will know who the collaborative teacher is next door or within that grade level or department. Will be able to find the supplies and the answers you need to the questions you have regarding a lesson plan. So I just want you to remember that the person next door is oftentimes a very big help if you are looking for materials or needing help with the lesson plan. And if all else fails, you go to the administrative assistant in the front office, and that person can point you in the right direction. Now we want to take an opportunity to show you a few lesson plans, maybe some good ones and some poor examples of lesson plans, and have you take a look and interpret these and give some of your thoughts and feedback.
Going to look over some examples of lesson plans that were left behind by teachers. The two that we will be reviewing were clearly notes that were left behind for that teacher. These would not necessarily be sub-plans. Typically, sub-plans are very detailed. They might even include dialogue. If they do include dialogue, I recommend that you follow that. Students will tell you all day long that you're doing it wrong, so make it easy for yourself and just do exactly as that teacher has left behind in the plans. This first one that we're looking at, you can see at the very beginning of the day, the teacher has you doing DOL. We like to use a lot of acronyms in education, and a list of those acronyms will be, and their definitions will be included for you at the end of this training. So you start the day with DOL, Daily Oral Language. You will need to find the Daily Oral Language book in that classroom. And then we move on to reading, and it says OPT. You would not know what OPT means for reading. This is where it would be very handy to go next door to a cooperating teacher and find out if they know what OPT means. In this particular case, it's the first three letters of a story out of the Basel Reader. From 9:30 until 10:15, it says Lo Su. You would not know what Lo Su means, but in this particular case, it means that the low readers leave the classroom and go for services with the reading specialist. Her name is Sue. This would be an excellent question to ask the teacher if you have an opportunity to speak with them in advance. So for example, we have many students who leave the classroom throughout the day for various services. It could be reading help, it could be resource room, it could be speech and language. So asking if there's any students leaving the classroom will allow you to know in advance and to also not be calling students out for getting up and just following procedure, because these kids are really good about being automatic, watching the clock and knowing when it is that they need to get up and leave the room for services. If you move on, it says recess from 10:15 to 10:30, so you will need to know where do the students exit the building to go to recess and where do you pick them up from recess. In elementary school, we always walk students when they leave our classroom, so we will walk them to the doors in which they exit for recess, and we will pick them up from those doors. Same thing goes if you are walking them to PE, music, library, or lunch. We never just release students into the hallway. When they return, you will do some science and writing. As you can see, this teacher had numbered this a little bit differently. So it says read the desert book at the bottom, and then brainstorm a list of animals using butcher paper. By arriving 30 minutes early, this will allow you to find those necessary items for this lesson. Every school keeps butcher paper in different locations, so knowing the lay of the land when you get into the school will be very helpful. We will wash our hands prior to going to lunch, and lunch is from 11:20 until 12:10. And then when they return, it appears that there's a read aloud, so you will need to find that book. When you first come into the school, when the students arrive, there will be some students who are going to surface right away, and those are your helper students. If you have a hard time finding things in the classroom, ask one of those helper students. They are amazing. They will be right there to assist you throughout the day. Looks like there's going to be a movie for math, so you'll need to find that movie. You will also need to figure out how to use the technology, and some of it is a little bit tricky, so again, arriving early will give you the opportunity to learn how to do that. Toward the end of the day, they go to recess, and then it looks like you have an art activity, painting cactus. So again, arriving early will help you. You will figure out where those art supplies are, and make sure that you have everything set up correctly for that end of the day activity. Let's move on to the next lesson plan. This is, again, looks like it was a lesson plan that was not intended for a substitute, but was intended for the classroom teacher. It has a couple of things on here that I wanted to make note of, and one of them is the Idaho Historical Museum field trip. It could happen. You could be subbing on a day in which there was a field trip. We would recommend that you alert someone in the office that you have a field trip that day, and we will do our very best to find another adult to go on that field trip with you. We don't necessarily want to send a substitute who doesn't know the names of all of the students on a field trip where they don't know anyone. So again, please alert us, and we will make sure that we find someone who can attend that field trip with you.
A couple of things to note that you will find different about being a guest teacher in the elementary and secondary level, of course, is elementary, you'll be with the same students in the same classroom throughout the entire day. At the secondary level, you will accept a job in a specific content area, and you will be teaching that same content to multiple class periods throughout the day. So we'll take a look at this first lesson plan. At the top it says the plan for Thursday the 25th. One thing you might note at the very top is that if you had any questions, this particular teacher pointed you in the right direction to another colleague, Julie Davis, that you could go to for questions if you had any or you needed help with the lesson. You can see that it's broken down by period. You have first period, 8th grade English, a pretty simple, straightforward task, take attendance. Students should be working on editing or revising phase 3. They may listen to music on their phones. You might find that using phones or listening to music during lessons could be problematic, and we will touch a little bit on that when we discuss classroom management. But it looks like this particular teacher has created a culture within their classroom where phones have been allowed during independent work time to listen to music. Second and third, fourth periods, it looks like you switch content areas to speech. Again, pretty vague and basic outline for those particular speech classes. Students need to be working on their outlines for their speeches, works cited page, visual, and then we move into fifth period, and it looks like you're covering someone else's class. So again, this is part of being flexible as a guest teacher. You may be asked to do extra duties within that day. Sixth period, you have a lunch. Seventh period, it looks like Wilkinson and Irwin's classes will come into your room, so you'll have some additional students, and the teacher will provide something that they will be working on. In eighth period, you'll have speech once again, and it'll be a duplicate of what you had for second, third, and fourth period. And the last period of the day, it looks like a ninth period, which would be an intervention period in which students are working on various classes and trying to get their homework done and getting help with the subject areas they need. So taking a look at that lesson plan, I want you to think a little bit about what questions you might have, what you might be missing, and maybe some positives of this lesson plan that you would take. Now we'll take a look at the subplans for 5-9 of 19, and a couple of things I would like to highlight with this particular lesson plan is this teacher left a nice summary at the top, thanking you for being the guest teacher, telling you that you will have 6 periods of physical science, mostly ninth graders with a few eighth graders, kind of how to get the day started with taking attendance. She's left a bell schedule for you, giving you some direction on if students need to use the restroom or get a drink, letting only one student out at a time, and leaving names of students who misbehaved during the class. At the very bottom of the lesson plan, she's also given you an opportunity to kind of rank each class period in terms of their effort and their behavior throughout the day. This is great feedback for this teacher when she returns to her classroom. I'm giving you a little tip about emergency procedures, where the emergency bag is, how you would exit the room, and where you would walk to in order to be accounted for during an emergency drill. Then she gives you a bell schedule, which kind of lists all of the classes and what to expect and when they start and end. Gives you a couple of teachers that will be in the classroom helping you. So this lesson plan will, whereas it doesn't give you a ton of detail about the lesson plan, it gives you a great summary of the day. It gives you a nice detailed schedule of the bell, and it gives you an opportunity to give feedback. I want you to take a moment to review this lesson plan and highlight some of the strengths and weaknesses that you see within this one. I'd like to take a moment now to talk a little bit about specialized plans that some of our students may have, and even special programs that we have within our school district. We have many special education students across the school district that are involved in various programs such as Gifted and Talented. We have an Excel classroom for our emotionally disturbed or behavior students. We also have an ERR classroom, extended resource room. We have your traditional resource room. We have autistic classrooms. And so oftentimes you may accept a guest teaching position in one of our special programs. And I would highly encourage you to give this a chance. Sometimes working with these students can be very rewarding, often challenging, but also very rewarding. Often within our special program classrooms, we also have a lot of paraprofessionals, or at least 1 or 2 paraprofessionals within those classrooms that help you as the guest teacher. So sometimes these can be some of the most rewarding and exciting guest teaching positions. You get to work with a small group of students, you get to work with students who have specific needs, and you get to work alongside other adults, paraprofessionals within the classroom. If you are a guest teacher in a traditional classroom, oftentimes you will have students who are on a special education plan or an IEP, or maybe students who are on a 504 plan. So it's important to understand these two acronyms and what they mean. A 504 plan is for students with a disability requiring accommodations to level the playing field within the classroom. 504 plans cover a wide range of disabilities. It could be a student with ADHD. It could be a student with asthma. It could be a student who is currently in a wheelchair because they broke their leg. And these accommodations will look different depending on the student's disability. And there should be notes within the sub lesson plans for you identifying those students and what accommodations they need in the classroom. Higher level of accommodations you would see on an IEP or an individual education plan. These students have specialized instruction overseen by a special education teacher or maybe a speech or language pathologist. They have accommodations related to academics, such as differentiated work, the use of manipulatives, or using a Chromebook possibly to do written work or their assignment. Students on an IEP often leave the classroom during the day for services within their special program classroom. So just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about specialized plans you might see, 504 plans, IEP plans, some of our special programs, and encourage you to be a guest teacher in our special programs, but also to identify those students in our traditional classrooms who are requiring accommodations from a 504 or an IEP.